Hare Krishna. So I may be wrong, but I've heard that normally you don't have a class on Monday, is that correct? So with your permission, because, I'm not saying we won't have a class today, and then we'll have something, but we won't follow the normal schedule if that's okay, because today, you may have picked up just now, as I mentioned a little bit in the chanting just now, a few personalities who happen to be, today is their appearance day, at least the anniversary of their appearance or disappearance. And it's also the Sant Panchami, which doesn't mean our geographical location or our situation here may not mean an awful lot, but it's a very significant day in many parts, especially in northern India. It's the beginning of spring day. And we're not going to go there, we're not going to discuss that, but it's a big festival in Vrindavan today. But for us, it's also significant, and it's also Saraswati Puja, the goddess of learning. Many people start their learning, their studies on this day, and so on, worship Saraswati for knowledge. We're not going to go there either, but we're going to try to associate a little bit with some of these personalities. Incredible. This is Aaron's second time here today, so this is a little bit different to normal. Normally we have a discussion on philosophy of Krishna consciousness or the practical application of it in our lives. But today it's also very related, of course, because where do we get our knowledge in life from? Where do we get our influences from? Some are from within, from previous lifetimes, no doubt, and any kind of, you could say, adjustments or involvement in our perception of the world comes a lot from association with others. So today we're going to try to see if we can associate with some eternal associates of Krishna, some very special individuals. I don't plan to talk about Raghunath Das this morning. Raghunath Das Goswami is, of course, probably the most famous of these personalities. Not the most famous, that's not correct, but the most discussed, the most present, more or less, in our movement in terms of his teachings, his life, and so on, his example. But we'll discuss a little bit about the other personalities this morning, if we can, Krishna allows, and if you allow. And they are also very illustrious, transcendental personalities. We're very fortunate because it was only a matter of hundreds of years ago that they appeared on this planet. So there's still some history there. When you go back a long time to Krishna's pastimes, aside from Krishna and a few of the very, very, you could say, well-renowned personalities, many of Krishna's eternal associates, not so much is said about their, appearance, their, a little bit about their relationship is there, of course, but not so much. There are personalities like Arjuna and others, of course, is much said. But like Subal, we know a little bit, we don't know too much. Or about Sridham, any of the cowherd boys or the gopis, we know a little bit, but not too much. Whatever's recorded in scriptures. But a recent, 500 years ago, some recordings were there. Murari Gupta, he had his diary, Swarup Damodar kept a diary, and much recording is there. Krishna Das Kaviraj, Vrindavan Das Thakur, Lochan Das Thakur, Kavi Karnapurna. So many persons recorded, they wrote down some of the details of these great personalities. They themselves are great personalities. So Raghunath Das, much was recorded, particularly in Swarup Damodar's diary, and also, of course, he was in Vrindavan for a long time. So Krishnadas Kaviraj also looks at Raghunath as one of his gurus, so he's recorded a lot about his life also. And other incidences are there in his youth and childhood. I don't know exactly where they've been recorded, but they are there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya, other writings of the great devotees about Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu and his associates. So today we're going to hear four. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was not in the same era. He appeared about 100 years after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I think exactly, actually. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, well, let's say a few Mangalacharas first. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschachate Shatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lange Yunimgarim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna. Well, if you can't hear it, let me know, because yesterday I was tired. I wasn't able to speak very loudly, and the microphone wasn't the sound system was not very loud. So can you hear it today? Is it yes. Audible? We hope that it's worth hearing, something at least. We hear from Bhaktivinoda Thakur various places, but particularly he recommends that we hear about elevated personalities, great personalities. In the material world, we like to hear novels. Sometimes we like to hear biographies about famous persons we adore, or whatever it may be, maybe our own family members, whatever it may be. We often like to hear about that. It may be interesting, it may be something a little bit exciting for the time being, but it doesn't necessarily have much long-term benefit. They're just appearing for a moment in history and they're gone. But the great devotees of the Lord, their lives are of a different category altogether. They give us a chance to actually experience, in this lifetime, they give us this chance to experience what it's like to be on that platform of self-realization or love of Godhead, which is the objective goal, to awaken our pure love. Everyone's searching for love. One lady came last night for the first time, I think, and she was so desperate. She said, I've been searching for 20 years for the purpose of life. And she's a university lecturer here in Christchurch. I've been everywhere, she said. I'm so frustrated. I'm so desperate. She said, I'm crying during the night. What is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What's the use of it all? She was so eager. Of course, that's no doubt, that eagerness is prerequisite, you could say, in achieving or moving in that direction. But I hope she finds some benefit in your association. She's going to try to come more and more. She's a busy lady. And this is how it happens when we associate, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, how do we understand the truth? Tadvidi pranipadena, pariprashnena sevaya, upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. We understand that truth by association, isn't it? By hearing from a self-realized soul, because they've seen the truth. It's like if you've been, all of you, of course, you're from New Zealand, but say you've never been to New Zealand and you want to know about it. You may read something about it, but if you hear from somebody who's been there or lives there like yourselves, you get a much bigger picture. You get a clear picture. So we can read about these things, Krishna, and that's also very good. But when one gets the chance to actually associate, then that's really special. So, of course, we're not exactly associating with these persons today in one sense, but in another sense we are. The main form of association is through hearing. Through hearing. So we're going to try to hear what some of them, maybe many things are recorded. Obviously we can't, even if we just read something, we didn't have time to cover even one of those persons. So we're going to just try to mention a few things today. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes in one of his literatures called Bhakti Aloka how valuable, how important it is. How important it is, or how valuable it is to hear about great personalities, even though they may have appeared 500, 400, 500 years ago. Just hearing about them, he said, helps us to develop courage, confidence, determination, enthusiasm, and satisfaction, happiness, just hearing about them. As we get a little happiness hearing about people in this world whom we may have some interest in, but you get the opportunity for unlimited happiness, everlasting happiness, hearing about persons who are on that eternal platform, who realize the truth, or who are eternal associates of the Lord. When we say realize the truth, in one sense we're referring to those who have practiced, and by practice have realized it. But the eternal associates of the Lord, they're living in that eternal world. They're living in that eternal truth. That's the normal state of these eternal associates. It's not that they're ever conditioned like we are. These personalities today, whose appearance and disappearance it happens to be, are such eternal associates. And when we hear or associate with such eternal persons, then, even if we're practicing, we come to that platform, that's also equally, you could say, valuable. But especially those eternal associates, when they come into this world and give their association, this is so rare and so valuable. And we have this wonderful opportunity just a few hundred years ago when they were present and we can hear about them. So I'm just going to read one verse come to mind in that, as we've got the third canto in front of us, here from chapter 25. Here, remember, read one of the most famous verses of this chapter, which is really dated. Well, you're welcome to come in. You may have to move a little bit to open the door there. I don't know. There we go. Satam, or say, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is text 25, chapter 25. Satam pasangam mama virya sangvido bhavanti vitkana rasayana kataha Tajoshanara Swapavagavatmani Shraddharatir Bhakti Anukrameshyati. And this is also spoken by Lord Kapila Dev to his mother, Devahuti, and he's describing how the transformation takes place, how our consciousness can be transformed, and it's pretty much founded on this principle of association. Hearing about Krishna, hearing about the great devotees of the Lord, such association is so powerful, as we may have heard yesterday. Every learned man knows that the greatest entanglement for the living entity is his attachment to material sense enjoyment. When that same attachment is transferred to the self-realized souls, it is the cause of our liberation. So we try to become attached to these great persons. We are attached to so many things in this world, isn't it? Our body, our own perception of the world around us, we're very attached to that. And how other people relate to us, and we're attached to other people, we're attached to objects, we're attached to so many things. And we've got to be attached to something, even if it's our own philosophy of life. Everyone's attached to something. So if we become attached to the self-realized souls, our devotional advancement is guaranteed. This is the greatest good fortune. So we try to develop a little attachment. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have this chance. We pray to Prabhupada that we can be a little attached to, of course, to Srila Prabhupada. He's our immediate connection. But he wants us also to become attached. Prabhupada said in his own word, these are our Siksha Gurus, these are our guides, these are our inspirations also. So we're not, as I said, we're not going to just go into the life of Raghunath Das and his teachings this morning. There's not enough time. But we'll try to mention something about the others. So this is a beautiful verse. In the association of pure devotees. So let's try to think of those great devotees by just remembering them. We hope that we can feel a bit of their association. Discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. I'm sure we've all experienced that when we associate with an advanced devotee, we become a little inspired. I only speak from little experience, but you may have had a lot more. But you know, when we're with somebody who's really absorbed in hearing and chanting, you feel encouraged to hear and chant. When you associate with somebody who's so serious about deity worship, you develop at least a respect for deity worship, even if you don't do it. But it's very, association is so powerful. So this morning, let's hear about, I don't know who to start with, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is very famous in our line of devotees, isn't he? What is he famous for? Nitai has his hand up, so I guess that's the polite way to answer. Yes, Nitai. Commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, he wrote many, many books. I don't know the names of them all. We have Madhurya Kadambini is one famous book we have. But in many ways, it's probably his most prominent, I don't know if it's most prominent, the most prominent I know of was his commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada based a lot of his commentaries on Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentaries. You know, he quotes him a lot, tremendous amount. He appeared later, he appeared the next 2 or 3 generations later in our line, you know. I don't know all the details of who was initiated by who and goes down the line there. There is a line. I think it goes from Narottam through Lokanath, Goswami, something like that. And then some others. And then Vishwanath was in line. And he's But it's mainly, as we know in our line, the main thing is siksha. Siksha meaning the essential path or the instruction which is passed on from one to the next. Guidelines, how to progress, how to practice Krishna consciousness, the truth about Krishna's position, about who are we and what is our relationship. Things passed on through the line of Siksha. And so he's prominent, Siksha in our line. Probably the most prominent after the Goswamis in many ways. And between the Goswamis and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's probably the most prominent in our line. And our present acharyas, from Bhaktivinoda to our Srila Prabhupada and others, quote him and refer to him so many times. He was such a learned person because he's also an eternal associate of the Lord. Even as a child, he appeared in Nadia district, but as a child he was so learned. He's Shrutidhar. Shrutidhar means what? Who knows what it means? Shrutidhar. Yeah. Photogenic memory. Very few people have that nowadays, but some people have pretty good memories. They just hear a thing once and they remember it. Right, Pushpa? No. Especially when we get old, right, Lakshmi? It's hard to remember where we are sometimes. But anyway, he was a Shrutidhar, and he could just pick things up. And he was writing even before he went to Vrindavan as a young man. His parents were very worried because they could see that he wasn't very interested in the material world. They got him married, but he didn't stay long. He zoomed off to Vrindavan. But and in Vrindavan, of course, he spent a lot of his time in Radhakund, apparently, in the Sripada of Krishnadas Kaviraj. And he took shelter, and there were followers of Krishnadas Kaviraj were also there. So he associated with them, and he heard a lot, and he heard all about, and he read and studied intensely all the writings of the 6 Goswamis. And in that way, he became, you could say, inspired to write the commentaries on the Bhagavatam, which was so amazing. I don't know if, maybe Krunika, you've read those commentaries, I don't know.
Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yeah, Vishwanath's commentaries on the Bhagavatam. Yeah, incredible. I mean, of course you find them in, not word by any means, and not everything by any means either, in the commentaries which we have. Because his commentaries go right up to the 12th canto, and many devotees have not read up to the 12th canto. But Hridayananda Maharaj and the other devotees working on it definitely based their commentaries a lot on the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and others too. Absolutely amazing. His name Chakravarti, his name Brahmin name, born in Brahmin family. One who spreads the Vishwanath, the Supreme Lord himself. You know. So one who spreads the glories of Lord Vishwanath, the Supreme Lord, and expands that circle of influence to others. That's what he's done. You know, it's so amazing and so inspiring to hear, especially the 10th canto. His commentary on 10th canto is so profound. So just opens the window. Sometimes, you know, everything's there in Prabhupada's books, but we don't always have the eyes to see it. We misinterpret it through our imperfect vision or somebody else's imperfect vision and misuse it sometimes, unfortunately. So we definitely need a little bit of help sometimes, seeing not just what's there, but seeing how it is to be applied in our lives too. Application of knowledge is pretty important, isn't it? As much as knowledge. In fact, misapplication is better you don't have the knowledge in the first place than to misapply it. It can be unfortunate results. So his commentaries are just extraordinary. Anyway, say no more. Time flies by. He's probably the least known of the 4 personalities that we're going to try to mention. And we'll skip through quickly. Vishnu Priya Devi is who is Vishnu Priya? It's her appearance today. It was Vishwanath's disappearance, by the way. Vishnu Priya's appearance. Who is she? She was the most, what can we say, eternal. simply an expansion of Srimati Radharani, you could say. But she is a consort of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna in the form of Gaura Hari. She was his wife. And that didn't last, from the external point of view, very long, as you may know. Lord Chaitanya had another plan, another purpose. So their marriage maybe lasted 6, 7 years, you could say, in measurable time. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, just think of me when he left. He said, you just think of me and immediately I'll be with you. Unseen by others. Unseen. So although it appears, and this is, through us, this is like, we can't kind of experience that maybe. Although you do to a certain extent, don't you? When somebody leaves, maybe they quit their body or they leave you or something, and they're very dear to you, you do think of them. You kind of feel them, don't you? You look at their picture, you remember them. It's a different type of relationship, but in many ways they're there. They're there in your thoughts, even in your behavior. You know, when somebody departs, sometimes you kind of almost take on their life. I know my mother, she hated football. You could probably call it soccer down here. I don't know what you call it. But my father was like a fanatic, you know. And after he left his body, my mother spent much of her time just watching football. She never watched it before. I couldn't even get a word in when I go to see her. Quiet, I'm watching the football. She never watched it before. It was weird. She kind of like almost took on my father's, habits and desires. Such was the attachment. And in a similar way, in a sense, we can't imitate. We shouldn't be stupid and think we're on that level. But in many ways, we take it on, we try to take on that. Many devotees think we kind of imitate, but imitation of a good thing can have some value. We've got to be careful there. Some devotees try to imitate Raghunath Das Goswami or something. We're not, but certain things we pick up, don't we? Inspire us to become a little more austere or a little bit more serious about our chanting. When we hear of Haridas Thakur, you become very serious about chanting, isn't it? Maybe. It's nice, you remember them. You have a little deity of Haridas. Same as Srila Prabhupada. Many of us have little deities of Prabhupada. We hear the Lilamrita, we hear about Prabhupada. You become enlivened, you become inspired to become more serious. You may never have met him. So what else is Vishnu Priya famous as or for?
When she eat one grain of rice, throw it around, she chanted, or like that?
Yes. After Lord Chaitanya departed, she underwent a tremendous, you could say, austerity from our perspective. For her, it was a different type of relationship, different type of ecstasy. She would constantly chant the holy name of Krishna. And she would, along with her chanting, I don't know if it was one round or one mantra, or one round, I believe, she would put 1 grain of rice aside. And that was what she would live on. She would cook that at the end of the day, and that was it. And she was just, nobody could understand how she maintained her life. She remained there in Navadvip today, and she worshipped the deity. She had I can't remember the history of how the deity appeared. Maybe some of you remember that. But Lord Chaitanya was manifest in her house. Have you been to that temple? Daneshwar, isn't it? Today is known as Daneshwar. Daneshwar is a very merciful form of Lord Chaitanya, giving like this, take. And she worshipped that form of her eternal Lord, her eternal life and soul. And beautiful temple, beautiful place, very merciful. Lord Chaitanya's mood, very merciful. So he was there always in that form also with her for her whole life. She worshipped him. Ishan, Mother Sachi's servant, was also there, also serving her. And others also stayed there. Vamsi Vedan, he was also there, another great associate. And together they were associating, and you can read this in Narottam Vilas if you want, how their feeling of separation from Lord Chaitanya was so intense, so Pardon?
left the world. Some have a great.
Excuse me?
She entered into the deity. That's what they would
She
say.
entered into the deity?
Yes, well, quite often they dress Dharmeshwara in a feminine with a sari and that. And so I questioned about. Of course, it's a well-known.
I can't hear very well. My hearing's going, I think. Did you hear?
Prabhu's saying that I think after when Vishnupriya left the world,
Yes.
because they say that she entered into the
Enter into the deity, yeah. Entered into the deity. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for adding that. What can we say? She's eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. She's a wonderful example. So chaste, so loving. Of course, she was devastated when Lord Chaitanya departed. And anyway, this is described in, I think, Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Mangala somewhere. The Lord Chaitanya's last night with Vishnupriya. It's heartbreaking. We won't go there. It's just a matter of just a few remembrances. But we'll talk a little bit about Raghunandana Thakur. Raghunandana Thakur was also an associate of Lord Chaitanya. He was the son of Mukunda. There are many Mukundas in Gaur Lila. Not just one, there are many. So he was one of them. And he was, his father was a great devotee. They were living not far from Navadvip, but associating with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So his father was I believe he was the one who was a physician, a doctor. So he was a very busy man. And he worshipped the deity of Gopinath. And one day he had a very, very busy day, and he didn't have time to do the daily puja. So he asked his little son, who was only 5 years old, Raghu, he said, please, can you worship, not please, he told him what to do and said, today you have to do all the puja, 5-year-old. Of course, we don't institute that in our movement yet, although Prabhupada, there is a letter from Srila Prabhupada. I think it was maybe to Kirtanan, it was to the devotees in New Vrindavan, where they had Radha Krishna deities. And he said the children could worship the deity from 9 years old. And then devotees said, do you mean Gaurnitai? Prabhupada said, no, Radha Krishna. Because we don't impose that, but it's not an age factor necessarily here. Interesting topic. So he was 5 years old, so father showed him, told him exactly what to do. He said you have to feed him like this and make sure he gets his lunch and so on. And the boy had seen his father do deity worship, of course, regularly. He was assisting his father. So he tried to imitate his father in every way. And I know, maybe his father prepared the lunch or something. And the boy took the offering in to offer it to the deity of Gopinath. And he rang the bell and said the mantras and did what was required. And he saw that the Gopinath was not eating anything. The plate was there and everything looked the same as it was when he put it there. He started to cry and cry. He was crying, please Gopinath, please eat. And Gopinath was looking at this love of this little boy and he said, all right. So he started to actually eat everything. And he wanted, his father said, make sure he gets everything. So the deity of Gopinath ate everything. There was nothing left. The boy was very happy. He took the plates back, washed them, did everything properly. And hours later his father came back and said, did you do everything? Yes, father. So where's the prasadam? Oh, the deity ate everything. My father, he was wondering, what's going on here? He said, my son, he's an honest boy. What's going on? He was doubtful. What happened here? Did some animal come and eat everything? What happened? He could, imagine, if you just made the lunch offering, and you go in there, there's nothing left on the plates. What would you think? What would you think?
Monkey.
A monkey, exactly. If you're in Vrindavan, you think a monkey came in. Here you might think that someone sneaked in when you weren't looking and took it all away or something, isn't it? You'd be surprised, to say the least. At first he thought he never put anything on the plates in the first place. He looked, there's nothing in the pots. It's all gone. And what to do? So he thought, I have to see what's going on here. So sometime later he asked his son to also make the offering again. But he hid himself this time. He did the same thing. But this time he didn't actually stay. He actually hid himself behind a curtain somewhere, watching what was going on. And the same, the boy did the offering. Oh, Gopinath, please eat. We hear two stories here. The first one's a bit more funny. And then Gopinath says, oh, I'm so full. You fed me so much already. I can't eat a single thing. My stomach's full. Another one is a different time. But either way, the principle's the same. And Gopinath said, all right then. Okay, I'll just take something at least. And he picked up a laddu. The day he picked up a laddu, started eating the laddu. And then the father was absolutely astonished at the devotion of his son. And realized that actually this was a fact. How the Lord was reciprocating with his devotion. Later on, when I went to Puri to see Lord Chaitanya said to Mukunda, he said, both of them, he said, who is the father, who is the son? And Mukunda said, Raghunandana is my father. I am his son. He's teaching me pure devotion. I mean, just a little bit, I'm sure that he was present when Narottam Das at Kaituri at the festival. He was one of the prominent members there also at that great festival. And last but not least by any means, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, who probably has a little bit more said about Pundarik than the others, probably is recorded at some length in Chaitanya Charitamrita and in Chaitanya Bhagavat, perhaps more. About Pundarik Vijayanidhi is more there. And he was a very special associate of Lord Chaitanya, very special. And sometimes in Navadvip, where Lord Chaitanya was residing in Bengal, Lord Chaitanya, when he was with his associates, would call out, bop, bop, bop. He wasn't a bopper. Do you have that term anymore? No, you have rappers. But when I was young, there was teeny boppers. There were these young kids, they were called boppers, teeny boppers. You heard of that term? Yeah? I don't know if it's still around. Some kind of musical, sad. So he wasn't a bopper, but he was calling bop, bop. It means father. It's a kind of a local, dad or something, a local term. And sometimes he would call out, Pundarik, oh my Lord, oh my father, Pundarik, Pundarik, when will you come? He would be crying. Nobody knew what he was talking about. Pundarik's the name of Krishna also, so many of the devotees thought maybe he's just calling out to Krishna. They didn't know who he was referring to. And they asked him, what are you referring to? Lord Chaitanya said, then he described this great personality of this name, but you will not recognize him. But soon he will come here to Navadvip. He's residing. Has any of you been to Pundarik Dham in Bangladesh? It's near, the city of Dhaka is one city. There's another, next biggest city is called Chittagong. Of course, the situation there is not so healthy as it used to be in many ways, but what to do. And that city is many, many great Vaishnavas appeared in and around that city. Vasudev Datta, Mukunda Datta. So many of them appeared around there. So Pundarik was also residing there in Chittagong. He was a very rich man. He was wealthy, very wealthy. He had houses here and there. Lord Chaitanya says he also has a house here in Navadvip and he will be coming here soon. and you may get the chance to associate with him, but you will not recognize him. None of you. Why? And purposely, Pundarik was disguising himself, making himself look like he wasn't really much of a devotee. He was living a very high life. Lord Chaitanya didn't reveal that at that point of time, but he was purposely doing that. So sure enough, it wasn't long after that that Pundarik Vijayanidhi arrived in Navadvip. And just to finish off, if you go to Chittagong at any time, there is an amazing, the devotees there have now acquired the property, the area where he lived. Vasudev Datta, Mukunda Datta, they all lived in that area. And they've renovated, all the buildings were run down. They've made them so wonderful. It's like a Gupta Vrindavan, it's like a hidden Vrindavan. Everything's there, Govardhan Hill, Jamuna, Radhakund, Shamakund. It's absolutely amazing place. I've been there once or twice many years ago. I can't imagine what it's like then. Even, it was like 80, last time I was there, I think it was 89 or something. How many years is that? It's a long time, 30, 40 years ago. It was amazing, incredible. I felt like I was really transported to another world when I was there. It was an incredible experience. Absolutely amazing place. It's not maybe right now is not the right time to go. I don't know, but if it's possible, it's worth visiting. It's really a holy place, special place, gorgeous temple. Anyway, he arrived in Navadvip, and nobody really knew him, but Mukunda Datta happened to be there. He knew him. Nobody else knew him, but and Vasudev Datta also was there. But they promised they wouldn't tell anyone because the Lord Chaitanya had a plan here. And so nobody knew that he was there, or knew, even if they didn't know, they couldn't recognize him. Why? Because he looked like a very materialistic person. He was living in opulence. He had a very opulent house, and he was dressed very opulently. Silk garments, very wavy, groomed hair, eating opulent food, many servants serving him, all kinds of paraphernalia in the house. He looked like a real materialist, So he was kind of in that way, he wasn't really bothered by anyone in a sense, but he had a plan here in relationship with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one day, Mukunda Datta said to one of Lord Chaitanya's personal associates, Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit was young, like even younger than Lord Chaitanya. And he said that, I know you have a great desire to associate with wonderful devotees. And a wonderful devotee has arrived in Navadvip. If you like, I can introduce you to him. So Mukunda said, oh yes, please. He was so eager, this eagerness to associate. This is one of the main secrets of advancement in Krishna consciousness, is eager to associate and hear from great devotees, isn't it? Associate doesn't mean we download all our problems, by the way. Now I can ask him about my marriage, I'm having problems, or my job, should I change my job, or should I move to another temple or something. That's not what it means, We tend to think that's what it means. Maharaj is here, I can download all my problems on it now, and if he doesn't give me the right answer, I can blame him for it, right? He suggested I did this. I did it and it was a disaster. I have an excuse now to... Many times it's like that, The real point is to change our perception, not to facilitate it. We think the Swami is somebody who facilitates our material shortcomings, our material lives. That's not what it was. Gadadhar Pandit wasn't thinking of associating with a great devotee for that. He just wanted to go there to be purified by their association and hear from them about Krishna consciousness. And that's not very often the case, I'm afraid. It is maybe in class a little bit, but in general, any darshan, I can only remember a few times in my life where darshan meant that, to actually inquire about the absolute truth. It's usually some mundane thing. 95% at least, if not more. You know, mundane means it's related, but it's like, you know, it's like, you know, even health things, they come and ask you about their health, what to do, you know. You go to a doctor if you've got health problems, you know. That's what they're there for, you know. Or farming, you know. I know a bit about farming, but I was discussing with your farmer last night, and giving him some suggestions because he hadn't been exposed to certain aspects. But anyway, you know, you go to somebody who knows, but these are things you go to the person who knows. Don't go to somebody who doesn't know, and you expect them to know everything or something. But anyway, whatever. So he went there with Mukunda Datta, Gadadhar Pandit, and he was expecting, you know, he was a very renounced person. Gadadhar was a simple brahmachari. He was very renounced. He was living a real simple life. And he expected, you know, we're going to see, you know, some Babaji or something or whatever, you know, a very renounced personality. And they entered into his house. And Gadadhar Pandit was, first of all, Pundarik, he recognized his dear friend Mukunda Datta. And who is this illustrious young man who has come with you? And then Mukunda Datta introduced him. Oh, I'm very fortunate that you've come to my house, and so wonderful. I'm happy to receive you. And they were talking a little bit with Mukunda Datta and Pundarik. Gadadhar was becoming a little bit perplexed here. What am I seeing here? He was sitting on almost like a throne with nice silk pillowcases, and there were spittoons either side. He was chewing pan, and somebody was grooming his hair with nice oils, and it was wavy, and he was looking in a mirror. He had dots all over his forehead and sandalwood paste here and there, looking in the mirror to see it was properly done. And there were all these opulent foods all around him, and two servants are fanning him with peacock fans. And I thought, what kind of devotee is this? This looks like a real, you know, materialist. I don't understand what's going on here. And Mukunda Datta was, of course, transcendental, eternal associate of the Lord, could see the doubt in the mind of Gadadhar. So then he decided he would change that. It wasn't surprising he was becoming doubtful. I guess any of us would be doubtful too, you know. I'd like you to introduce you to my spiritual master, who's like a pure devotee, completely renounced devotee of the Lord. And you go in there and he's living in the highest opulence, and we've had a little of experience of this, but sometimes it's a little perplexing, it's a little bit confusing. Especially in France we've had this. You know, the French people, they look at religious people, and in many ways you could say rightly so. They should be living like, you know, poverty-stricken lives in caves, and that's their idea of monks, you know. And when they see monks driving around in BMWs and living in palaces and so on, they naturally don't think very much about it, you know, they don't like it. And there's a lot, you know, there's maybe not a complete truth, but there's a lot of truth in that. So we do have to be careful of that, you know, in that sense, to be honest, to be where we are at. So anyway, Mukunda, he started to think, now, okay. And he started to sing various verses from the Bhagavatam. And what did he sing about? Who remembers? Yasoda. Pardon?
He sang about Putana.
Putana. He sang about the witch. There was a witch named Putana, a demoniac witch. She tried to kill Krishna when Krishna was a baby. She came there in disguise to feed him her breast milk, which was saturated in deadly poison, with the idea that he'll suck my breast and die. And Krishna did. He took her breast and enthusiastically sucked her breast. He sucked out all the milk and poison, and even everything was coming out. You could say, oh, cruel Krishna. He's a cruel man. He sucked and sucked and sucked. He sucked, and eventually he was sucking. Only blood was coming out, and he's sucking and sucking. Ah! And the witch then revealed her form and died. And Krishna gave her liberation and gave her an eternal position of one of his personal nurses. Can you imagine? She tried to kill him. The reward was he gave her an eternal relationship as a nurse because she came to offer him her breast. He accepted the positivity. So how merciful, Mukunda was singing, how merciful is Krishna. Even someone tried to kill him and Krishna rewarded her the highest good fortune. And so he's singing this. When Pundarik heard this, he was sat there on his bedstead with all his opulences around him. When he heard this, he couldn't restrain his emotions any longer. I don't know if any of you were in New Varshan. It would have been about 1996, I guess. Who was that? One of our devotees from, maybe, I don't know, Prabhupada disciple, I think. She was really good at drama. Last time I heard she was living in Otaki. Senior Mataji. Huh? No, not Bhakti Marg. One of the others. I can't remember her name now. I have not seen her in 20 years ago. She was living in New Varshan at that time. It might come to me if but it's not at the moment. And she was really good at drama, so she asked me to take part in this drama, Pundarik Vijayanidhi. I've never done it again. It's the only time. Once off. It was the most incredible drama I've ever taken part in, to be honest. It was, maybe there's two. That was one of two most incredible dramas. And it was absolutely amazing. It was like, you know, if you, some of you are into acting, into drama. Who likes drama? Who's an actor here? Who likes taking part in dramas? Anybody? No? Huh? Life is a drama enough. You don't need any more. But these type of dramas make your life. There's nothing like drama in many ways. Even in Bhagavatam, Uddhava says these pastimes should be enacted in drama. In this way, it become embedded in our lives. And some of the drama, I remember I did this drama in South Africa. Several dramas. We're every day doing dramas there. Until this day, whenever those devotees meet me, I only went there once, all they remember was the drama. I still remember that drama, and they remember everything about it, you know, everything about it. We try to make dramas for a whole audience, not just an act. It's not just entertainment. It's to involve the entire audience in the whole scene. And to a little extent, we tried to do that, and that's this drama too. So she asked me to be Pundarik. And I didn't know. She said, we have to have a rehearsal. I said, you cannot rehearse this. Let's see what happens on the night. You know? I said, you can go through what parts you want to be in the drama, but we can't rehearse the scene. It's just not rehearsable. If Lord Pundarik wants it to happen, something will happen. Otherwise, you can't rehearse this. At least this part of the drama. You can rehearse build-up and maybe conclusion, but not this part. So, I don't know what happened. I'm not even remember what happened, but I don't know what happened in one sense. But when Mukunda Datta started to recite this verse, Pundarik Vijayanidhi just went mad. He couldn't control his emotions. I mean, he had this beautiful silk garments on, his waistcoat and everything. He just ripped it to shreds, and he just flew off of the asana, or the chair, and just crashed to the ground, screaming his head off, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna! And he was roaring and bashing, everything was flying around. And then after a while, he just went totally silent. And hours passed by. He was in deep samadhi. And during this drama, as I say, I don't know what, I flew off the stage and crashed into the audience. And I didn't lie there for hours, but for some time. And I didn't even have a scratch or a bruise. I just crashed into the chairs, you know. I don't know. I mean, it was definitely something very different than normal, let's put it like that. I don't know what more to say about that, but it was such an embedded memory. And Goddarda was just stunned. He wasn't like an ordinary person. Goddarda could recognize ecstatic symptoms. And he just was stunned, and he felt absolutely disgusted with himself to have thought anything doubtful about that personality. And after some time, Pundarik came out of his deep samadhi and came back to normal, what we call normal consciousness. And then they discussed, and Goddarda begged him to please accept me as your disciple. So Pundarik accepted Goddarda Pandit as a disciple. Actually, after a while, after that, Goddarda went to Lord Chaitanya and asked Lord Chaitanya if he could take initiation from Pundarik Vijayanidhi. And Lord Chaitanya said, yes, at the rightful time, you can. Of course, Pundarik Vijayanidhi is none other than who? Vrishabhanu. And who is Vrishabhanu?
Srimati Radharani's father.
Yes, the father of Srimati Radharani. And who is Radharani? Who is Lord Chaitanya? Everybody, most of you know anyway. Who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Krishna in the mood of Radha.
Yeah, he's in the mood of Radharani. So naturally, Bop, he is feeling this relationship with his father. Pundarik Vijayanidhi was his own father. That was their relationship. Of course, there's many more things. Pundarik Vijayanidhi would go to Puri. He also had residences in Puri when Lord Chaitanya went there, and some pastimes are there too, especially a famous pastime, isn't it? When Pundarik Vijayanidhi was a very close associate with Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar was Lord Chaitanya's secretary, his closest associate in Puri. And when Pundarik would come, he would stay with Swarup Damodar also. They would associate together, actually not in the same place, but right next to each other. And they would associate very much with each other. So one time, it was the Odana Shasti festival. I think this is in December time. This is a festival in Puri where they offer the Lord new clothes. I don't know if you do that here or not, but on Odana Shasti you offer new clothes. But they offer him starched clothes. Generally, starched clothes are not to be offered. They're considered impure. But in Puri, they offer starched clothes. It's a little bit, starch is usually a bit stiff. I don't know if they still starch things these days. I don't know what they do. But it's a bit stiff. You have to wash it thoroughly and it softens up. So they offer starched clothes. Not only that, but the pujaris also wear starched clothes on that day. So the whole thing is a bit odd by normal standards. And Pundarik, of course, not a resident of Puri, and is not familiar with the customs of Puri. He said, what is this? Why are they offering the Lord Jagannath starched clothes? You're not even if you touch starched clothes, you're supposed to have a thorough wash. They're considered impure. And Swarup Damodar saying, I think it's a local custom around here. And they're laughing and joking in some ways and different opinion over it. No, even if it is, the pujaris, even the Lord can do anything he likes, but the pujaris should know better. They shouldn't do this. Yes, the Lord can do what he likes, but not the pujaris. So anyway, it's going on like this. He said, well, it's maybe a local custom, what can we say? But the pujaris also wearing it. This is contaminated. So they're discussing like this and on their way home from the temple. And then that night, Pundarik Vijayanidhi had a dream. And in his dream, Lord Jagannath and Balaram appeared before him and said, who are you to come here and tell us what to do? This is our arrangement. We want to wear starched clothes. And they started bashing him on the cheeks like this. Boom, 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 boom. You don't interfere with this. And he was ecstatically shocked. And he woke up in the morning, all his cheeks were bruised and swollen. And when Swarup Damodar saw him, what happened to you? What's happened to you? Did someone come and beat you up in the night? Yes, they did. In my dream, Lord Jagannath and Balaram came, beat me left and right. And they were laughing and laughing and laughing. And Swarup Damodar said, I've never heard how anyone's received such mercy before ever before. That the Lord has chastised someone like this in their dream. I've never heard such mercy as this before. You were so fortunate. I mean, this is a transcendental Leela, but you know how it's like that. Anyway, that was a little pastime there. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Over time, but what to do? Well, thank you all for your association. Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and we pray and hope that everything will grow and everyone's devotion will grow and their devotional relationships will blossom. We'll help each other to advance in Krishna consciousness. Try to develop better and better association. Hear the Bhagavatam together, chant together. Satam prasangam mamavirya sangvido bhavanti vidkarna rasayana kataha. This is our line, isn't it? What does it say here? In the association of pure devotees, we may not consider, I certainly don't, ourselves pure devotees, but still we can hear from the pure devotees in the association of others about the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know, sometimes you have to hear other things. We have our lives to lead, but this is the essential subject matter to hear. It's not hearing about gossip and criticisms and fault-finding and shortcomings. And how much time we can spend on that, God only knows. Isn't it? It's such a disease in our society these days. It's almost, it's not scary. It's terrifying. The amount of criticism, the amount of fault-finding, the amount of... It's just pride at its worst. It's just so painful. It's so painful. What the hell are we to be able to judge like this? You know, we're supposed to come together, whatever our faults are. Have we not got any faults? Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj one time said, should we use anger against those who are, you know, envious of the Vaishnavas? He said, yes, we should. But first we should look at our own hearts. And he himself said, when I look at my own heart, I find no one more envious of Krishna than myself. To whom should I use anger? There's no one more envious than me. Who are we? It's full of it. It's full of it. We sometimes even go to the holy Dham and churn it. It's so horrific. Such an unfortunate circumstance. So unfortunate. What to do? It's a real test of Kali. It's the biggest test, practically. And we even quote the verses, you know. You can read a Nectar of Instruction, one who is freed from the propensity to criticize others. Devotional service doesn't begin, what to speak of grow, it doesn't even begin as long as we're maintaining this propensity. The purpose is to get free of this propensity, to get free of this mentality, change our transformation, and that can be evoked by exposing ourselves to hearing and chanting the glories of the holy name, the form, the pastimes and qualities of the Lord in the association of devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Chandra ki jai. All glorious to all the assembled devotees. Please, this is Aaron's second time. He came last night. He's come again this morning. Please make him feel like he's one of the family. Look after him, love him. Hare Krishna. Is breakfast time now? No. We're having a little chanting now, and then there'll be